Hi, book lovers and summer readers. My name is Matt Damon, and I am a children's book author who lives right here in Southern Oregon, where you live. And the Jackson County Library Services asked me to share a book that I wrote with you. And this is part of the summer reading program. All right, the book I'm going to share is called The Fall of General Custard, or The Overthrow of a Leftover. And there's another video on your library's website where I share with you a process for how you could create a character that might be someone who could live in the fridge that's in my book. All right, well, let's read the book. Now, I have an electronic copy of the book on my computer, so I'm going to screen share with you. And there it is. All right. The Fall of General Custard, or The Overthrow of a Leftover. Story by Matt Damon and art by Gideon Kendall. Life in the fridge was quite peaceful and cool while under Queen Honeydew's virtuous rule. The queen led with fairness, and she never was cruel to the richest desserts, nor the poorest thin gruel. Thin gruel is a thin soup. The food groups were blessed by her wisdom and grace, and each sort of food had its own proper place. The fruits claimed the top shelf as their special space, and the next section down was the vegetable base. Now the middle shelf held an odd mixture of stuff like pastas and cheeses and small pastry puffs. Below them were the meats, who seemed rowdy and rough, but deep down inside they were tender, not tough. On the bottom shelf sat the desserts and the treats, but were mostly well known to be kind, gentle sweets. Each shelf was well kept, each was tidy and neat, with all foods well sheltered from dryness and heat. Then one summer morning, the door opened wide. A new jar of cherries was welcomed inside. "Come live on our shelf," the friendly fruits cried, so the cherries were placed by the olive jar's side. When a cherry named Rosaline came out to play, an olive named Romeo shouted, "Hooray!" They bounced with each other and then rolled away to play hide and seek on the fruit salad tray. "Romeo, Olive, you're playful and fast, but why are you salty?" the sweet cherry asked. "Well, I'm stored in a brine," he said, "so I'll last. But like you, I grew on a tree in the past." Well, it was a wonderful welcome surprise when both of these fruits, with their very own eyes, saw that they'd made a friend of the same shape and size. But then they heard shouting and loud, angry cries. A leftover custard was making a fuss, wielding his sword, making threatening thrusts. "I'm General Custard, the infamous, and I say the cherries belong down with us. Sweet maraschinos, I think you should know, belong on desserts for good taste and good show. So, Queen, I demand that you send them below, and if you do not, I'll declare you my foe." So this custard, and a custard is pretty much very similar to pudding. So he's a dessert, and he's got these cherries on his mind. This grumpy old custard was mighty upset. These cherries were foods he was greedy to get. If on top of his filling the sweet cherries were set, then he would be known as the best dessert yet. Well, the queen then replied from her high royal seat, "Old custard, you're different from most other treats. Perhaps you were cooked at an unwholesome heat. It seems that your filling is bitter, not sweet. Maraschinos are sweets, that is partially true. But truth can depend on a food's point of view. Now, I say the cherries may choose what they do. Since they say they are fruit, I declare they are too." Well, old Custard fell silent and slipped out of sight. But he spoke to the sweets on that very same night. "The queen isn't fair. She doesn't rule right. We sweets have been cheated, and now we should fight. We must stop this problem right down at its roots, or there'll be a day when all sweets are called fruits. Let's thump that ripe melon and give her the boot, and then I'll be the king all the fools must salute. Then up to the meats, Custard shouted his speech. The next thing you know, the queen's wisdom will teach that a sausage is a squash and a burger a peach. Come, fight with me, meats, I do beg and beseech. Well, the meats were all swayed by his strong point of view. They called out, a food fight is long overdue. And the sweets agreed. It's true, it's true. We will not be ruled by that dumb honeydew. Well, a bologna brigade with a pie and a prawn snuck up to the fruit section just before dawn. They food-napped the cherries with boldness and brawn. When the other foods woke, the poor cherries were gone. And you can see Romeo in his jar there snoozing away. He doesn't know that his friend has been taken. Well, the queen wasn't one to use soldiers and troops. She preferred to have peace among all the food groups. But that day she declared, I must whoop my war whoop, for the cherries have been food-napped by vile nincompoops. A war was declared and the foods did divide. The sweets and the meats were on old Custard's side, while most other foods let the queen be their guide. Some terrified turnips decided to hide. Now, Romeo Olive, that round, shiny lad, was a little bit scared, but mostly just mad. He thought to himself, oh, egad, this is bad. Food fights are awful and wasteful and sad. He knew that most foods were quite decent and kind, but ever since Custard got war on their minds, the peace in the fridge had begun to unwind. Was Rosaline safe? It was her he must find. So Romeo rolled off to find her in haste. He rolled despite fear of the dangers he faced. He hadn't 1 minute to worry or waste. The start of the war he could practically taste. Oh boy. Well, it was Custard's food forces that fired food first. A fat fudge sauce bomb landed loudly and burst. 3 beets were bruised badly and had to be nursed. The pies charged in with a large liverwurst. Salamis and sausages made in New York tossed the fresh salad with help from the pork. The bubbly wine shot her dangerous cork, and chocolate bonbons were launched from a fork. Well, once Custard's food army began its attack, the queen's cuisine was forced to fight back. A mustard yelled, Custard's a big brainless snack. Then a cabbage rolled over the liverwurst's back. All the fruits and the vegetables lined up in rows. On the queen's first command, they charged at their foes. A platoon of potatoes from East Idaho attacked the lime jello with balls of bread dough. As Romeo rolled down that bombed battlefield, he hadn't one weapon of war he could wield. He had no thick armor, no helmet, no shield. He almost got fudged and nearly oatmealed. He dodged the 2 armies and he rolled very far without getting bumped or bruised or scarred. But as he rolled nearer to Rosaline's jar, he was spied by old Custard, who watched from afar. Young Romeo's search for the cherries, it seemed, had gotten old Custard most mightily steamed. The general pointed his sword and then screamed, I command that olive be peeled and then creamed. It's pretty strong words there. Well, now Romeo's fate looked much worse than just grim. as the sweets and meats were gathered round him. The chance for escape seemed slimmer than slim, but then Rosaline leapt from the cherry jar's rim. When she landed, she shouted so all foods could hear, "Beside this brave olive I'll stand firm and near. I'm a fruit and a sweet, that's perfectly clear. There's no reason why innocent foods should be smeared. We food groups have different shapes and tastes, and now fears in our hearts which old Custard has placed. But look, we're all foods, and the fact must be faced that mashing each other is simply a waste. We must all refuse to take part in his game. Should foods fight a war so that Custard finds fame? Well, I say no way. And I'm willing to claim that other fine foods of the fridge feel the same. The meats and the sweets all suddenly froze. For foods respect courage, everyone knows. Then meanwhile, the olives and cherries each chose to line up at Romeo's side in tight rows. Then a meatball, whose name was Sir Roland O'Dew, called out to his friends in the thick meatball stew, "Let's join these bold olives, these brave cherries too. Let's join in this peace plan, this wise switcheroo." So out of their pot meatballs hopped one by one, until inside the pot was a total of none. Some peaceful green peas joined what had begun, and the sesame seeds jumped right off their bun. The small baby wieners and eggs scrambled out with sausages, beans, and some shy sauerkraut. A frosted fudge brownie gave a hug to a sprout. "That Rosaline's right," the wrinkled raisins did shout. Two steaks and a cake, who were weary and worn, made peace with the ketchup and kiwis and corn. All through the fridge, new friendships were born, and a pledge to keep peace was solemnly sworn. And Broccoli got his glasses back. I don't know if you saw, but he lost his glasses earlier in the story. The Queen yelled to Custard, "It's time to surrender. Please join us here and become a war ender." But Custard still dreamed of great power and splendor. He ignored the small part of his heart that was tender. Cried Custard, "I'm second to none, don't you know? I'll bash you peacemongers myself, tally-ho!" Well, he swung his sharp sword in the air high and low, but all foods could see he had nowhere to go. Before he could move, there came a command that he should be tied with a strong, stringy strand of Sprego spaghetti, the extra long brand. Now Custard would never be king as he planned. A piece of Swiss cheese then wisely decreed, "Our peace in the fridge will now only succeed if we follow leaders who don't lead with greed." And every last food group agreed. Yes, indeed. The olives and cherries all joined in a cheer. "Hooray for the Queen! Hip, hip, and hear, hear!" Then Romeo spoke into Rosaline's ear. "You're a very brave cherry, a heroine, dear." Well, Rosaline smiled a small, humble grin and said, "In this battle, we both risked our skin. We proved we are friends through thick and through thin, and showed that stopping a war is the best way to win." Well, to the freezer, the Queen sent Custard away. Guarded by popsicles, there he must stay. His return to the fridge will be welcome someday, if he's willing to give up his rough, warlike ways. And so there he is, and one of the peaceful peas has a sign that she's holding up. "Make peas, not war." All right. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed the story. I love sharing this book. If you want to check out the book, you could check it out from one of your public libraries in Jackson County. And if your family wanted to have a copy of the book, You could go to my website. My website is www.authormattdamon.com, all one word, no caps. And there's information about how to order the book. And of course, I can autograph it for you and autograph it to someone else if you want to give it to a friend for a birthday or some other occasion. I'm happy to sign it to them. All right, and I'll mail it off to you. All right, so friends, I hope that you're having a great summer, and I hope that you read, and all my best to you. All right, bye now.